The Oklahoma City Thunder update. I'm Dave Morris alongside Thunder beat writer, the man who knows, Mr. Eric Horn, with an update on Andre Roberson.
Andre Roberson has experienced another setback in his recovery from knee surgery from earlier this season, Dave. This is a very unfortunate thing for the Thunder. He was making some great progress. Yesterday, on Thursday, he was showing some of the best progress he'd seen from him all season. In post-practice settings with the Thunder staff, he was making sharp cuts on defense. He was moving really quickly. He was getting up off the floor multiple times for dunks. And then, today we get news from a Thunder spokesperson that, in those workouts, Roberson experienced kind of a tweak in his knee. He felt something. They did an MRI, and they showed an avulsion fracture in his knee, which is going to have him out for another 6 weeks, and he'll be reevaluated in 6 weeks. That'll be around, second week of January or so.
What do we know about avulsion fractures in basketball players? That doesn't sound good.
It doesn't sound good at all, but it's a situation where, as of now, Roberson is not going to require surgery. The Thunder is basically going to let that heal. That's typically how most avulsion fractures are handled. What it is, from what I've read, is when tendon pulls away from bone. When it gets too far apart, that's when it can require surgery. But since he's not going to need surgery at this moment, I think the Thunder feels that he can just heal on his own. Rest is typically how people heal from avulsion fractures, and rest, ice, and maybe some of the work that Roberson's been doing over the past few weeks has built up some wear and tear on that knee. While the Thunder has been trying to ramp him up over the last couple of weeks in terms of his rehab, they couldn't have foreseen that this was going to happen. It's unfortunate, but it could have been a lot worse. It could be another surgical procedure.
Thunder has certainly been no stranger to injuries. Yeah. They're also not one to rush a player back either.
No, right. It's a situation where, they went slow with Russell Westbrook coming back from arthroscopic knee surgery. It was a day-to-day thing with him. They were going slow with Roberson. They were actually going to put out an update next week, which would have been 2 months removed from the last time he had a procedure, his first setback in coming back from the knee surgery. They were going to say next week that, he was making progress, but he wasn't yet ready to go back to contact. He hadn't had any contact yet in practice. But, the Thunder's not going to rush him back. It might be a situation where, Andre Roberson, gets back into the games later in the season. If not, they'll just wait until the offseason or next season for him to get going. Time's running out on the Thunder to get him back. The January 11th date that he's projected to be reevaluated at, that'll be more than halfway through the Thunder season. They'll be about 42 games in by that point. It's going to be interesting to see if Roberson can really come back and be, anything close to what he was, if he does in fact come back this season.
Perhaps he's an adjustment to the lineup as they head towards the playoffs, but on the other hand, this is the team that's playing really good defense in his absence. Yeah, they're #1 in the league in defensive rating right now. They're only giving up 101.8 points per 100 possession. That's a really good number, and that's been without without Roberson for any of these games. This guy's coming up close to about a year out of the Thunder lineup. It's given Thunder opportunities to get some younger guys some reps. Terrence Ferguson, Hamidou Diallo, those are 20-year-olds who've gotten a lot of reps at the shooting guard position. Alex Abrinas, when healthy, has been there. Even a guy like Deonte Burton, who's a two-way player, who could see possibly getting a contract by the end of this season, because the Thunder is going to need more consistent, stable bodies in those positions. And Deonte Burton's a guy who, if the Thunder uses him or has him on the team or with the team in practice for 45 days, that exhausts his two-way eligibility, and they're going to have to sign him to a full contract. So that's something you can look out for too. They still have an open roster spot. Even with Andre Roberson on the roster, they still only have 14 players. So it's not out of the question that they could make a trade and potentially bring in a guy, a 2-for-1 deal, send a guy out, bring in two, or they can go get a guy in waivers or in free agency like they did with Corey Brewer after the trade deadline last year. So there you have it, Thunder update. Andre Roberson suffering a setback in his knee rehab. Eric Horn, along with Maddie Lee and a cast of qualified people, will be at the arena tonight as the Thunder host the Hawks. You caught up with Trae Young earlier today. You can watch that interview online at newsok.com and follow along all the action throughout tonight on newsok.com and in upcoming editions of the Oklahoman. Eric, thanks for your time.
Thank you.